The Joe Rogan Experience.
JD, what was the whole experience like for you? Like starting from the first contact with Josh and, how your situation unfolded where you were getting wrongfully accused.
It all really started is because I had developed a relationship with a woman in my office who I had known for many years. And that was a mistake on my part. And it was contentious. It was really beautiful for a long time, like many relationships are. And then it started to disentangle. And
shocker.
Yeah, right. I mean, and it was all my fault, Joe. I mean, I'm really contrite about the situation because I'm very aware of my mistakes. And I've made amends with her. And thankfully she has accepted my apologies because I put her in a position where she should have never been in as being an employee of mine. But I'd known her for 19 years. I'd never really been at the head of such a big office. I mean, it's about 100 people. So for me, it was a really big thing. And there's a romance that goes with kind of winning an election and coming in and trying to make a difference. I think it swept us up, and we really genuinely cared about each other. But then it started to kind of fail, and it was my fault. And I brought a lot of toxicity to the relationship that and I don't like the word toxic. I don't know why I don't. But
it's compromised today.
Yeah,
right?
It is. It is. But that's exactly probably what it was. And so I'm lucky that. But so, anyways, there was arguments that were caught, on camera with her and I, that were released to the public, and it showed us, me arguing with her and raising my voice, and so it was an extremely embarrassing time in my life. But so this was all happening amidst this. And so it all really did start happening when I exonerated those Nancy Smith and Joseph Allen in 2022. My life changed because I knew there would be consequences to actions like that because it creates financial problems. People are suing people in federal courts. So it causes problems even in the sense that I was very close with police. I was a county prosecutor. I'm a very pro-police man. And so it was difficult, the strain that it put on some of the police departments, even though it was an old case. I'm still friends with a lot of these detectives. And to sort of make decisions like that where you have to kind of disagree, it can be difficult. It could strain relationships. And but I really didn't realize the extent of how much it would do it. So when I exonerated Nancy Smith and Joseph Allen, which is one of the worst cases I've ever seen, I thought that it was the worst case I'd ever seen. And then I got Josh's case. And after I was going through all that hardship, basically on October 1st of 2024, I was charged with 3 felonies: tampering with records, intimidation, and bribery. It was shocking to me because I couldn't figure out what the conduct was that they were referring to. So what in essence it was is because of that fallout from the videos that were released, and she didn't have a part in releasing the videos, and so she had called us in the summertime, even though we weren't really talking a bunch, and she had kind of expressed her sorrow that those videos had gotten out, and that she didn't intend for them to, and that she kind of wanted some help with the media about how can we kind of help a little bit with the PR. And my partner and my chief of staff, Jim Burge, who's a legend unto himself, he's the best writer I've ever seen. So he wrote a statement. And it was supposed to be prepared for her lawyers if they wanted to review it and see if they agreed with it or change it or anything like that. So, and to prove that that's what occurred was I have text messages from her on the day that Jim wrote the statement that says, I trust Jim and his magic pen because she knew how good of a writer he was. And then the next day, when I'm supposed to be intimidating him, according to the state, when I'm supposed to be intimidating her, according to the state, I received a text message apologizing for this situation that we're in because we both were just really. It was dramatic to have your personal life right in even a small town like that. It was dramatic. So that's really what happened. But what they alleged that we had created this false narrative, this false document, and then intimidated her into adopting it. That was the allegation, which is completely false. And we had all the evidence to prove it. So I was fairly confident in my case because I'm a lawyer. I was a defense attorney for 15 years before I took office. So I'm fairly knowledgeable about what constitutes a good case or not, and I had a great case. But the stress that it put on my family and my mother and my father, just awful. I have nieces and nephews. I'm a bachelor, but I've got nieces and nephews with my last name, and that really bothered me. And so while I'm battling with this, the interesting thing, I'm charged on October 1st. On October 4th, and they had, once we broke up in 23, they had kind of been courting her because they knew that she was my weakness, that the contentious relationship, and I think they were hoping that they would turn her on me. And so they did as much as to exploit and try to utilize our relationship against me. In fact, the lead detective that was investigating us was attempting to sleep with her at the same time. Attempting to sleep with her. I have text messages asking for nude photographs, asking to go over her house. This is while he's investigating me, Joe. He's trying to sleep with my girlfriend. Saying stuff like, you should get back at him. You should get back at him.
How dumb is this guy to make this in text messages?
I couldn't believe it when she showed.
You want to think that the people that are evil, that are manipulating people and falsely trying people, they're like evil geniuses.
Joe, it was an extraordinary. That's why at first I didn't believe it. I was like, why would he write it? Why would he do that?
That's
and then she shared those messages with me. She showed me them. I didn't get to actually physically, and then later I acknowledged it. But so what it all occurred was in 2020. I won an election. I went against my own party, and I ran in a primary, and I ended up winning. And then my relationship with the sheriff, who actually ended up investigating me for this case that I'm referring to, we had pretty good relationship there for the first couple of months when I got elected. I had asked for a couple of my deputies to be or a couple of my investigators to be deputized, which is a pretty standard procedure. He agreed. And then he hired the individual that I had defeated in the election, and the whole attitude changed. Everything changed. It was now very contentious. He had withdrawn his desire to deputize my investigators. The relationship turned very sour very fast when he hired my predecessor, which is unusual to have a lawyer working in the sheriff's department anyways, because statutorily I'm the lawyer for the sheriff's department. So it's an unusual move to even hire a lawyer in a sheriff's department. You could probably get 2 deputies for that kind of money. So it was unusual in this sense. And then, so the relationship just soured, and it was kind of like they were coming after me immediately. And then in late 23, they actually hired then the guy that's running against me, another lawyer who was a former employee of mine, who's now the Lorain County prosecutor. They had hired him. So the agency that was investigating me had hired my predecessor, and then the individual who was now running against me for the office. 2 lawyers, first of all, in a smaller town. I mean, we have about 300,000. A tenth maybe out of the 88 counties in Lorain County. Is fairly high, but it's a small town. To hire 2 lawyers on a sheriff's department is unusual, and they were both my political enemies. And then the detective that's investigating me is attempting to sleep with my girlfriend. So if you can think of a less objective investigation, Joe, I'm all ears. You know,
what a fun workplace environment.
I'm telling you.
What was it like going to that office every day?
It was wild. So really, what happened was on October 1st they charged me with the felonies. I was flabbergasted because I was kind of so confident in their inability to ever get anything like that on me that I was kind of boasting in the sense that, hey, all you had to do is go to Elyria Municipal Court, grab a complaint, you can do it. Never thinking that it would actually happen. Yeah, because I was very confident that I did nothing illegal. So what occurred was on October 4th, it makes the papers on October 1st. October 4th, the woman that I had a relationship with, she sees it in the paper. She's walking in the store and she sees it in the paper, and she sees me and my chief of staff, who she was very close with, and her instinct was to go, well, what'd they do? Like, she had no idea that the conduct that they had interviewed her about was actually the conduct they had used to charge me. So she was wondering, like, what the hell did we do? She had no idea. So that very same day, she sent text messages to the detective in charge. And she said, what are you guys doing? These guys, JD never bribed me. These are false charges. All this is on text message. He never bribed. What are you doing? You turned our personal life into charges against JD. This is crazy. And she was emphatic that she wanted to speak with me. And the problem was I had an order by the court that I was not to speak to her because her lawyer had represented that she didn't want to speak with us. So and she was trying to get to me to tell me what had happened, but I couldn't speak with her. And so she was growing more frustrated and more frustrated. Eventually, she spoke to our lawyers. But what happened was that I was charged 30 days before the election, and that's devastating. I mean, and so what happened was on October 4th, when she sent the text message in, I was entitled to those text messages. Those are exculpatory. I was entitled to those immediately. And they waited a month, and they waited till 2 days after the election on November 7th, and then they gave me the text messages that showed everything I had said was true.
So dirty.
It was...
Nobody wants to believe that politics and that law enforcement could be that dirty.
So this is what's going on.
Wow.
While I'm trying to get his attention, and I have no fucking idea
I'm
about
losing my
any of
mind.
that.
You know
what
what I
a
mean?
perfect storm.
Oh my god!
So I then, when I made contact with JD, he started explaining this to me, and I'm very I approach this work like a surgeon, or how I picture a surgeon would approach an operation. I'm single-handedly focused on making the kidney transplant or whatever, and however you want to analogize it. So I was hearing him, but I was kind of the mindset that those are your problems. I understand. This
Which they
sounds
were.
wild, but I said, you should now know what it feels like, because I was pissed that he wasn't paying attention, because these guys were so remarkably, in my mind, so demonstrably innocent.
JD, why didn't you contact him?
I was going through hell. I had been kind of attacked. They've been trying to get
So it
special
was
prosecutors on me
because
for
it
a
was
year.
happening like in the cloud of it all. You had to focus on that
I had
one
to
thing.
completely self-preserve,
I get
and because I had thought that I was going to be a politician for a long time, Joe. I was really passionate about it, and so it was really important to me. And I had never dreamed that I would ever be charged with felonies. It's insane. So it really, Jim and I had been fighting though for a year. I mean, we were battle torn. I mean, we always joked around about how we're gunfighters. You face that way, I'll face this way, and we just got to fight our way out. And it had been that way for a year. So I was kind of I was stressed. It was very difficult to think about focusing my mind on anything else other than trying to exonerate myself first.
Which is
and we
also
did.
good for your opponents because it makes you bad at your job.
Awful. It gums everything up.
Of course.
I started to understand how on a national level what effects that has.
Imagine what Trump went through.
It's the same. It's a similar thing.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't care what your opinion is of that man. To have the mettle to face what he faced and continue on a path of getting anything accomplished, let alone what he accomplished, if you don't stand up and cheer for that, no, the human cost of these prosecutions, you're hearing it right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
I still haven't gotten over it.
This
The
is
lawfare is very un-American.
Well-
it's a very un-American thing to do, to unjustly accuse someone of crimes and use your position of power to try to arrest that person and jail that person. That's very un-American.
well,
That's how we should all look at it. Instead of
something-
looking at it in terms of like parties and this is, these are my people, this is against me, this is for me. It's bad for the country.
It is.
Real bad for the country. We are supposed to represent freedom. On the world stage, we're supposed to be the people that have the most freedom of speech, the most freedom of expression, the best path to success if you're a nobody. This is supposed to be a place where everybody gets a shot. And if you allow the system to unjustly accuse and prosecute people for crimes that are demonstrably false, that's very, very un-American. And that's how we should look at it. I mean, instead of this fucking fuck my enemies, us versus them, you're kind of committing treason. You're kind of ruining everyone's. If you could pull it off, you ruin our faith in what this thing is supposed to be.
Well, look, I think that quite obviously there are prosecutions that need to happen when someone commits a violent crime, when there's domestic abuse, when there's robbery, all of that. That's not
for
but
sure.
What should not be lost on people, because you saw it play out on a national stage with the president. You are now hearing about it in a smaller, not a small town, but a smaller jurisdiction. And the irony of this, well, it struck me as I was speaking to JD the first time, is here's a man that's fighting for his life. And I'll confess to you, I used it to say, I continually said to JD, imagine you have to go through this for 30 years
It's not even
behind
comparable.
bars. So when I finally got through to him that night, we must have spoke 8 times that night.
Yeah.
He knew that there was a problem with this case, and he was creating and understandably so, we don't have time for me to actually sit and listen to you and go through the evidence again, because he had been through it before in the Ohio 4 case. So as Dame Fortune would have it, I don't know where I heard that, but as
Good saying.
the way it worked out is that 3 or 4 days after we spoke, the charges against JD were dropped.